Unexpected invitation. Commander Sarah Chen let out a long-suffering sigh as the holographic image of Admiral Zexbrix flickered to life before her. The Arcturian's compound eyes glittered with amusement, his mandibles twitching in what Sarah had come to recognize as an expression of smug satisfaction. "It's simple, Commander," the Admiral's voice crackled through the comm system. "The Galactic Council is hosting a cultural exchange event, and Earth has been invited to participate in the unique companion species showcase." Sarah pinched the bridge of her nose, a gesture that never failed to fascinate her alien crew. "Let me get this straight," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "You want us, the scary Deathworlders, that half the galaxy still thinks eat babies for breakfast, to bring our pets to an alien show and tell." Zexbrix's mandibles clicked with enthusiasm. "Precisely. It's an opportunity to improve interspecies relations and show the galactic community that humans aren't just bloodthirsty warriors emerging from a planet that wants to kill them every 5 minutes. Sarah groaned, realizing she was fighting a losing battle. "Fine, but when this inevitably turns into an intergalactic incident, I'm blaming you." "Duly noted," Zexbrix chittered. "Oh, and Commander, do try to have fun." As the hologram flickered out, Sarah turned to face her crew, all of whom were struggling to hide their grins. "All right, you lot," she sighed. "Looks like we're going to a pet show. Any volunteers?" The resulting chaos of enthusiastic shouts, laughter, and what sounded suspiciously like a bark from the engine room told Sarah that this was going to be a very long mission indeed. 2 weeks later, Sarah found herself standing backstage at the Galactic Cultural Exchange Center, surrounded by her team and their assorted pets. The sounds of various alien species chattering excitedly filtered through from the main auditorium. "Remind me again why I agreed to this," Sarah muttered, adjusting her uniform for the umpteenth time. Dr. Raj Patel, the team xenobiologist, grinned as he cradled a suspiciously quiet cat carrier. "Because deep down, beneath that crusty exterior, you're a softie who can't resist a good laugh." Sarah grumbled, but there was no heat in her words. Despite her reservations, a part of her was looking forward to seeing the aliens' reactions. If nothing else, it promised to be entertaining. Their banter was interrupted by the booming voice of the announcer. "And next up, we have the delegation from Earth. Please welcome our Deathworld friends and their pets." The last word was spoken with such a mixture of fear and curiosity that Sarah couldn't help but snort. "Well, folks," she said, turning to her team, "it's showtime. Try not to start any wars, okay?" With a collective deep breath and a suspicious meow from Raj's carrier, the human delegation strode out onto the stage, ready to shock and awe the alien audience. Assembling the showcase, as the human delegation took their places on the stage, Sarah surveyed the vast auditorium filled with curious alien faces. She couldn't help but feel a twinge of trepidation. What if this whole idea backfired and they ended up causing an intergalactic incident? Raj, sensing her apprehension, leaned in and murmured, "Relax, Commander. I'm sure the little furballs will behave themselves." Sarah shot him a withering look. "That's what I'm worried about. Have you met our security officer?" She gestured subtly towards Carlos, who was already eyeing the audience with a mischievous gleam in his eye. Raj chuckled. "Come on, Sarah. Have a little faith. This is our chance to show the galaxy that we're more than just bloodthirsty warriors. Besides, I doubt the aliens are expecting anything less from the terrifying Deathworlders." Sarah sighed, knowing he had a point. "All right, let's do this. But if anybody starts a war, I'm blaming you." Raj grinned and went to retrieve his cat carrier, while Sarah turned her attention to the rest of the team. "All right, listen up," she called out, and the chatter around her slowly died down. "Remember, we're here to represent the best of what Earth has to offer. No starting any intergalactic incidents. Got it?" There was a chorus of affirmative responses, and Sarah felt a small smile tug at the corners of her lips. These were her people, her crew, and she knew they would do their best to make this a success. As the announcer's voice boomed out their introduction, Sarah took a deep breath and led the way onto the stage, Rex the German Shepherd trotting obediently at her side. The alien audience fell silent, thousands of eyes and other sensory organs fixed upon them, with a mixture of anticipation and trepidation. Sarah stepped up to the microphone, surveying the crowd, and decided to dive right in. "Greetings, members of the galactic community," she began, her voice projecting with confidence. "We, the terrifying Deathworlders from the nightmare planet Earth, have come to present our fiercest, most vicious companions for your viewing pleasure." A ripple of nervous murmuring swept through the crowd, and Sarah couldn't help but bite back a grin. "I'm sure you're all expecting monstrous creatures with razor-sharp claws, venomous fangs, and an insatiable bloodlust. Well, I'm happy to report that you'll be thoroughly disappointed." She gestured to Rex, who promptly flopped onto his back, tongue lolling out in a doggy grin as he waited for a belly rub. "This fearsome beast," Sarah announced with mock gravity, "is known on Earth as a dog, specifically of German Shepherd." The audience seemed unsure whether to laugh or run screaming, and Sarah took that as a good sign. "As you can see," she continued, "he's absolutely terrifying." Kneeling down, Sarah began vigorously rubbing Rex's belly, causing the dog's leg to start thumping against the stage in ecstasy. Several of the more high-strung alien species flinched at the noise. "Yes, ladies, gentlemen, and various other gender designations," Sarah said, standing back up. "This is the result of thousands of years of careful breeding, the perfect killing machine, reduced to a drooling puddle of fur by a simple belly rub." A tentative laugh sounded from somewhere in the audience, and Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Maybe this wasn't going to be a complete disaster after all. Introducing the Deathworld companions. As Sarah stepped back, Dr. Raj Patel took the stage, a cat carrier clutched in his hands. "And now," he announced with a flourish, "prepare yourselves for one of Earth's most efficient predators, a creature so fearsome, so deadly, that it's responsible for the extinction of entire species." The alien audience leaned forward in their seats, appendages gripping armrests tightly. Raj paused for dramatic effect, then opened the carrier. Out stepped Whiskers, a rather plump tabby cat, who promptly sat down and began grooming herself. "Behold," Raj said solemnly, "the mighty house cat." A collective blink rippled through the audience, and several aliens turned to their neighbors in confusion, as if to ask, "Is this some kind of joke?" Raj, clearly enjoying himself, continued his presentation. "I know what you're thinking. Surely this small, fluffy creature can't be as dangerous as you claim. And you'd be right. Sort of." He reached down to scratch Whiskers behind the ears, eliciting a loud purr that caused several audience members to jump in surprise. "You see, cats like Whiskers here are obligate carnivores. They're equipped with razor-sharp claws, keen night vision, and lightning-fast reflexes. In the wild, their larger cousins are apex predators." As if to demonstrate her dominance, Whiskers chose that moment to flop onto her side, stretching luxuriously before fixing the audience with a look of utter disdain. "But these little guys," Raj explained, "they've managed to convince an entire species of supposedly intelligent primates to wait on them hand and foot. Cats have mastered the art of looking at you like you're the biggest disappointment in the galaxy. It's a skill many of our politicians are still trying to perfect." This earned a genuine laugh from the audience, and the tension in the room noticeably eased. Next, Marina Vav stepped up, a colorful bird perched on her shoulder. "And now," she announced, "I present to you a living descendant of the dinosaurs, a creature with the ability to mimic human speech, solve complex puzzles, and, if my experience is anything to go by, wake you up at ungodly hours of the morning demanding crackers." Polly, the scarlet macaw, swiveled her head, taking in the alien crowd with obvious interest. Marina reached up to scratch the bird's head, prompting Polly to let out a content whook. "This is Polly, a scarlet macaw," Marina explained. "Birds like Polly are highly intelligent. They can learn to mimic human speech, recognize shapes and colors, and even perform simple math. They're also incredibly social, forming strong bonds with their human companions. As if on cue, Polly suddenly squawked, "Marina, pretty Polly want a cracker." The audience gasped, many of them leaning forward in fascination. Marina's face flushed slightly as she hurried to explain. "Ah, yes, well, they learn to associate certain phrases with rewards. It's a form of operant conditioning, you see. They don't always understand the meaning of what they're saying." Polly, apparently deciding that the audience needed further demonstration of her skills, suddenly belted out, "I'll be back," in a perfect imitation of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Marina's blush deepened. "And sometimes they pick up phrases from movies. My roommate's a bit of a film buff." The alien audience was now thoroughly engaged, many of them chittering, clicking, or otherwise vocalizing their amusement and interest. Sarah, watching from the side, allowed herself to relax slightly. Maybe this crazy idea wasn't going to be a complete disaster after all. Reptilian revelations and wormy wonders. Next up was Carlos Rodriguez, the team's security officer. He stepped forward, a long, sinuous creature draped over his shoulders. "Friends, Romans, aliens," he began with a grin. "Lend me your ears or whatever auditory organs you might possess. I present to you one of Earth's most misunderstood creatures, the snake." A collective gasp went up from the audience, and several of the more nervously inclined species began to edge towards the exits. But Carlos, noting the reaction, was quick to reassure them. Now, don't panic. This lovely lady is Noodle, a ball python. She's non-venomous, and I promise you, she's more interested in napping than in causing any trouble." To demonstrate, Carlos gently lifted Noodle from his shoulders, allowing her to coil around his arm. Snakes like Noodle are carnivorous reptiles. In the wild, they're important parts of their ecosystems, helping to control rodent populations. As pets, they're actually quite docile and low maintenance. He stroked Noodle's scales, earning a flick of her tongue. Some humans find snakes scary, but once you get to know them, they're really quite charming. Plus, they give great hugs. This last comment earned a mixture of nervous laughter and intrigued murmurs from the audience. Carlos grinned, clearly enjoying the aliens' reactions. "You know," he added conversationally, "there's an old Earth legend about a snake convincing the first humans to eat forbidden fruit, thereby introducing sin into the world. Personally, I think it was just a clever snake who wanted to watch the chaos unfold. They're crafty like that." This bit of human mythology seemed to fascinate the alien audience, many of whom began excitedly discussing among themselves. Sarah made a mental note to have a chat with Carlos later about not accidentally starting any intergalactic religious debates. Finally, Dr. Emily Wong stepped forward, a clear container filled with soil cradled in her hands. "And now for something completely different," she announced with a bright smile. "These little guys might not be traditionally considered pets, but they're some of the hardest workers on our planet." She held up the container, allowing the audience to see the soil moving slightly. "Meet my baby Icenia fetida, more commonly known as red wiggler worms. These little guys are absolutely crucial to Earth's ecosystems. They can eat half their body weight in organic matter every day, turning waste into nutrient-rich soil. They're nature's recyclers." Emily beamed at the container as if it held the secrets of the universe. "Plus, they're great listeners. Never interrupt, always attentive. Unlike some of my ex-boyfriends." This last comment earned a ripple of laughter from both the human team and those aliens who understood the concept of dating. "Composting," Emily continued, her eyes shining with genuine excitement. "That's using worms to break down organic waste, is becoming increasingly popular on Earth. It's an eco-friendly way to deal with food scraps and create rich fertilizer for plants. In a way, these worms are helping us terraform our own planet, making it greener and more sustainable." She paused, looking out at the sea of alien faces. "I know they might not look like much, But these little guys represent something fundamental about life on Earth, and perhaps life throughout the galaxy. They remind us that every creature, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, has a vital role to play in the greater ecosystem. There was a moment of silence as the aliens processed this, and then, surprisingly, a smattering of applause or various alien approximations thereof broke out. It seemed that Emily's passion had struck a chord with the audience. Sarah stepped forward again, bringing the presentation to a close. "So there you have it, folks," she said, surveying the crowd. "Dogs, cats, birds, snakes, and worms. Just a small sampling of the diverse life that Earth has to offer. I know we might not have delivered on the fierce and terrifying front, but I hope we've at least piqued your curiosity." She paused, looking out over the audience. The fear and trepidation from earlier had been replaced by genuine interest, and in many cases, amusement. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Maybe this hadn't been such a bad idea after all. "I'm sure you have questions," she continued. "Probably a lot of questions, like why would you keep predators in your homes? Or how have you not been overthrown by your feline overlords? We'll do our best to answer them all. But first, would anyone like to meet our furry and wormy friends up close, forging newfound friendships?" There was a moment of hesitation. Then a small, timid-looking alien near the front raised what appeared to be a tentacle. "Excuse me," it said in a soft voice, "but may I pet the dog?" Sarah's smile widened. "Of course," she said, gesturing for the alien to come closer. "Rex is very friendly. Just let him sniff your appendage first. It's how dogs say hello." The alien hesitantly approached, extending a tentacle towards Rex. The dog gently sniffed it before giving it a small lick, and the alien let out a sound like tinkling bells, apparently its species' version of a giggle. "It's so soft," the alien exclaimed in wonder as it gently patted Rex's head. And just like that, the floodgates opened. Aliens of all shapes and sizes began crowding around the stage, each eager for a chance to interact with the Earth animals. Whiskers found herself receiving more chin scratches than she'd ever had in her life, alternating between purring contentedly and giving her admirers looks of benevolent disdain. Polly delighted the crowd with her colorful feathers and vocal imitations, though the humans had to quickly intervene when she started teaching some of the more impressionable aliens how to swear in multiple Earth languages. Even Noodle had a fan club forming, with braver aliens marveling at her smooth scales and gentle nature. Emily's worms, to her absolute delight, sparked a lively discussion about ecosystem management and sustainable waste practices. As the event stretched on, laughter and excited chatter filled the auditorium. The initial fear had given way to genuine curiosity, and in many cases, affection. Sarah found herself fielding questions left and right, her earlier sarcasm replaced by honest enthusiasm. "No, cats don't actually plot world domination. Well, not successfully, anyway. Yes, dogs really can learn to understand dozens of human words and commands. No, we can't understand their barks, not for lack of trying, though." As the session was drawing to a close, the original announcer made his way back to the stage, looking slightly frazzled but undeniably impressed. "Well," he said, his voice filled with a new respect, "I think it's safe to say that our Deathworlder friends have surprised us once again." Sarah stepped forward, Rex trotting obediently at her heel. "That's the thing about Earth and its inhabitants," she said, unable to keep a hint of pride from her voice. "We're full of surprises. Life on our world has taught us, and our animal friends, to be tough, yes, but also to be adaptable, intelligent, and capable of forming deep bonds. Those are the real strengths we bring to the galactic community." She paused, looking out over the now enthusiastic crowd. "Plus, we're pretty good at turning deadly predators into cuddle buddies. It's a skill." The audience erupted in laughter and applause, and various alien equivalents thereof, as the human team prepared to leave the stage. They found themselves surrounded by eager aliens, all clamoring for more information about Earth's animals. "Do you have any more of these dogs and cats?" asked a spindly alien with iridescent skin. Carlos chuckled. Oh, buddy, you have no idea. We've got dogs the size of your hand and dogs the size of small vehicles. We've got cats with no fur and cats with so much fur they look like walking cotton balls. The aliens' eyes, all 7 of them, widened in wonder. Fascinating. And they all coexist peacefully. Raj stepped in diplomatically. Let's just say our pets have mastered the art of detente. Usually. Meanwhile, a group of small amphibious aliens had cornered Emily, peppering her with questions about the worms. But how do they move without appendages? One burbled excitedly. Emily launched into an enthusiastic explanation of earthworm locomotion, complete with wiggling hand gestures that had her audience captivated. And you say these creatures can regenerate parts of their bodies? Another alien asked, its gills fluttering in excitement. Yes, some species can. Emily nodded. Cut an earthworm in half, and you might end up with 2 worms. They're like nature's very own Hydra. The aliens murmured in awe, and Emily made a mental note to warn her colleagues back on Earth that they might be getting some interstellar peer reviews in the near future. On the other side of the stage, Marina was dealing with a rather persistent avian alien who seemed convinced that Polly must be a sentient being. But it speaks, the alien insisted, its feathers ruffling in agitation. Surely that indicates higher intelligence. Marina sighed, wondering how to explain the concept of mimicry to a species that apparently took all vocalizations at face value. Polly is very smart, she began carefully, but her speech is imitative, not. She was cut off as Polly suddenly squawked. Polly want a lawyer. The alien's beak fell open in shock. You see, it said, its tone triumphant. It understands legal systems. No, Marina groaned internally. She's just repeating something she heard on TV. Polly, honey, you're not helping. The parrot, seemingly enjoying the chaos it was causing, then proceeded to belt out the chorus of "Never Gonna Give You Up," much to the alien's growing confusion. And now it sings a ballad of eternal devotion. The alien exclaimed, "Truly, these parrots must be the secret rulers of your world." As Marina tried to explain the concepts of pop culture and internet memes to the increasingly bewildered alien, Sarah found herself cornered by what appeared to be a group of alien diplomats. "Commander Chen," one of them began, its tentacles writhing in what Sarah had learned was a sign of intense curiosity. "We must admit, we had reservations about this presentation, but you've certainly given us much to think about." Sarah nodded absently, scratching Rex behind the ears. "I'm glad to hear that. We hope to show a different side of Earth life, one that doesn't usually make it into the official reports." Indeed, another diplomat, a being that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a redwood tree, clicked its mandibles thoughtfully. "We had heard tales of Earth's harsh conditions and deadly fauna, but these creatures, they seem to embody a curious mix of ferocity and gentleness." "That's a pretty good description of Earth life in general," Sarah agreed. "And humans, too, come to think of it. We've had to be tough to survive, but we've also learned the value of cooperation and companionship." The first diplomat's tentacles rippled in what Sarah recognized as the alien equivalent of a nod. "A most interesting philosophy. But tell us, Commander, how did your species come to form such close bonds with these other animals? Surely there must have been a period of conflict." Sarah couldn't help but laugh. "Oh, there was conflict, all right, and still is in some parts of the world. But somewhere along the line, our ancestors looked at some of the most efficient predators on the planet and thought, I bet that would make a great roommate." She shook her head, still amazed at the audacity of her species. "Horses were probably the first. We think they might have initially hung around human settlements to scavenge for food, but over time we realized they were useful for hunting, protection, and companionship. Cats likely followed a similar path, though if you asked them, they'd probably say they domesticated us." The mantis tree alien's eyes widened. "Fascinating. And the others, the birds and the snakes?" Sarah grinned. "Ah, well, humans have a bit of a habit of looking at wild animals and going, "I want one." Not always our smartest trait, I'll admit, but it's led to some interesting relationships. Birds like Polly, their ancestors were probably first kept for their colorful feathers, and now they're beloved pets, known for their intelligence and personality. And the snakes. She paused, her gaze softening. Would you believe me if I told you some humans keep them because they think they're cute? The diplomats exchanged glances, clearly trying to wrap their minds around the concept of finding a predator cute. Sarah decided to take pity on them. "Look," she said, her voice taking on a more serious tone. "I know Earth has a reputation out here as the death world. And sure, our planet can be dangerous. But it's also incredibly diverse and full of life that has found all sorts of ways to survive and thrive. Our relationships with animals like these," she gestured to Rex, who was now sprawled on his back enjoying a belly rub from a delighted alien child, "they're a testament to that adaptability, to the capacity for different species to not just coexist, but to form real bonds." The diplomats were silent for a moment, absorbing her words. Finally, the mantis tree alien spoke. "You have certainly given us much to consider, Commander. Perhaps we have been too quick to judge Earth and its inhabitants based on mere survival metrics." Sarah nodded, feeling a glimmer of hope. This was why she'd agreed to this crazy scheme in the first place, the chance to change perceptions, to build understanding. "Tell me," the tentacle diplomat said, its appendages writhing with barely contained excitement, "would it be possible to arrange further cultural exchanges? Perhaps visits to Earth to see more of these pets in their natural habitats?" Sarah blinked, momentarily taken aback. I suppose that could be arranged, yes. We'd need to clear it with the higher-ups, of course, but I don't see why not." As the diplomats excitedly discussed the possibilities among themselves, Sarah found her gaze drawn back to her team. Raj was demonstrating to a group of fascinated aliens how cats purr, with Whiskers looking supremely smug about all the attention. Carlos had a line of brave souls waiting to touch Noodle's scales, each touch followed by excited chitters or gasps. Marina was now teaching a group of Avan aliens how to whistle, with Polly enthusiastically joining in, creating a cacophony of mixed success. And Emily, she had somehow managed to set up an impromptu worm-petting zoo, with aliens of all shapes and sizes gently handling the worms, their faces or equivalent features alight with wonder at the tiny creatures. As Sarah watched, she felt a warmth spreading through her chest. This wasn't at all how she'd expected the day to go when she'd first received that call from Admiral Zexbrix. She'd expected fear, maybe disgust, possibly even hostility. Instead, she was witnessing the birth of dozens, maybe hundreds of interspecies friendships. A small voice piped up from near her elbow, and Sarah looked down to see the timid alien who had first asked to pet Rex. "I was wondering," it said, "do you think, could I maybe get a dog of my own?" Sarah felt her eyes widen. Well, that's not really up to me," she said carefully. "There are a lot of factors to consider: the environment on your home planet, your lifestyle, the specific needs of different dog breeds, not to mention the quarantine and adaptation periods that would be necessary for interplanetary pet adoption." The alien's face fell, quite literally, its features seeming to droop towards the floor, and Sarah felt a pang of guilt. But she added quickly, "I don't see why we couldn't look into setting up some kind of interstellar pet adoption program in the future. We'd need to do a lot of research and planning first, to make sure it's safe and ethical for both the animals and the adoptive families." The alien's features perked up instantly, its eyes shining with hope. "Really? Oh, thank you. I promise I take very good care of it. I'd learn all about Earth and dogs and how to be a good pet parent." Sarah couldn't help but smile at the alien's enthusiasm. "I'm sure you would," she said kindly. "Tell you what, why don't you give me your contact information? If we do manage to set up a program like that, I'll make sure you're one of the first to know." As the excited alien scampered off to find something to write with, Sarah shook her head in amazement. Interstellar pet adoption now. There was a concept she never thought she'd be considering when she joined the space program. But then again, that was the beauty of exploration, wasn't it? You never knew what new connections you might forge, what new ideas might take root. Today, it was aliens petting dogs and cuddling cats. Tomorrow, who knew? Maybe Earth dogs would be herding alien livestock on distant planets, or there'd be intergalactic cat show competitions. Maybe Emily's worms would be revolutionizing waste management across the galaxy. The possibilities were as endless as the stars themselves. As the event finally began to wind down, Sarah gathered her team for a final huddle. "Well, folks," she said, looking at each of them in turn, "I think it's safe to say this was a success. Any thoughts?" Raj grinned, whiskers draped around his shoulders like a furry scarf. "I think we just revolutionized Earth's image in the galactic community, all thanks to our furry, feathered, and wormy friends." Marina laughed, dodging Miss Polly tried to nibble on her hair. "And we might have started a few intergalactic trends along the way." Carlos chuckled, noodle coiled contentedly around his arm. "Definitely. Just wait until the aliens see how much fun it is to have a slithery roommate." Emily beamed, already planning the logistics of an interstellar worm composting initiative. "I'd say we've opened up whole new frontiers for cross-cultural exchange and ecological cooperation." Sarah smiled, gazing out at the bustling activity around them. "That we have, team. That we have." As the human delegation prepared to depart, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. They hadn't just shown the aliens a few cute pets. They'd challenged perceptions, forged connections, and laid the groundwork for a future of collaboration and understanding across the stars. Who knew what other surprises the Deathworlders from Earth had in store for the galactic community? One thing was certain: the galaxy would never look at humanity, or its furry, feathered, and wormy companions, the same way again.